Not started yet. Yeah, now it's fine.
Yes, now good. Okay. I
Professor Dr. Ravinder Rena is profound academician and distinguished scholar in economics, writer, editor, advisor, and public intellectual with over 28 years of teaching and research experience in Asia Pacific, Africa, and European continents. He has been an independent consultant and training expert. Professor Lena is currently working as professor of economics and internationalization project leader at the NW Business School, Northwest University, South Africa. He also serves as an adjunct professor of economics for master's and doctorate programs at Monarch Business School, Monarch University, Hergelzog, Switzerland. Previously, he worked as a professor of economics at the Department of Economics, University of the Western Cape, Cape Town, South Africa. He also served as professor and coordinator, Joint Africa Masters Program, Haroldo Pupugevitz Graduate School of Business at the Namibia University of Science and Technology. He also worked as the head of economics department of business studies, the Papua New Guinea University of Technology, Papua New Guinea. Professor Lena earned his PhD from the Department of Economics, Osmania University, Hyderabad, India, with the achievement of University Gold Medal. He obtained his MA, B.Ed, M.Phil, PhD from Osmania University and BA and LLB from Kakatiya University, Warangal, India. Please welcome Professor Ravinder with a big applause.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for the wonderful introduction about me. I must thank the conference organizers of the international conference, SEAMA 2021, which is organized by the University of Ryukyu, Japan, Okinawa City, Japan. I also should thank Professor Shunshaku Hashimoto, the Dean of the Faculty, for inviting me for this wonderful event. I also should thank the university, other conference organizers, the Vice Chancellor, or the other team members.
Lavi, just a moment. Your national anthem first.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Just a moment. Okay, again. Sorry. Okay, thank you very much for coming. So let's start your speech. Everybody applause.
Thank you, Professor Hashimoto. Thank you for that, national anthem of South Africa. It's indeed a great honor and privilege for me to be part of this international conference, SEAMA 2021, organized by University of Ryukyu, Okinawa City, Japan, during the 6th and 7th of March 2021 during this pandemic period. I also should thank the conference organizers, the Vice Chancellor and the other team members who are taking part in this particular event to make this event a grand success, bringing different stalwarts and different keynote speakers and gurus of tourism management area, like Professor Kayo Chon and Yankee, and we got Dr. Joseph and many other colleagues from probably from Japan, from UK, from Hong Kong, from Indonesia, and many other countries, South Africa. So I'm delighted the fact that because I'm not only representing South Africa as a country, but also representing the continent. African continent is the second biggest continent in the world, with its about 30.5 million square kilometers land. 20% of the total land of the earth, this surface or the earth surface has been covered by African continent. So I feel privileged indeed to represent the African continent in this particular event. And so without wasting much time, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank again and good evening everyone from Japan and probably from Indonesia, from Far East Asia countries where it is evening already, 5:15 in the evening. And for me, South Africa, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. So I just would like to touch upon the conference organizers have chosen a very pertinent topic. The pertinent topic is that island tourism and hospitality management during the Corona period. Well, we've been experiencing this Corona period probably for a little more than 1 year. When the pandemic has started end of December at Wuhan province of China, and then gradually it was spread to different corners of the globe. And today, more than 200 countries, ladies and gentlemen, have been infected or affected by this coronavirus pandemic. I just would like to touch upon the issues probably the world has been experiencing for almost a year. In South Africa, for example, we got the first coronavirus case that was reported on 5th of March 2020, exactly a year ago. Now, when we started, the first case was reported in South Africa, that is 1 year ago, and today almost 1.52 million people got infected. And then more than 55,000 people got killed by the virus in South Africa alone, ladies and gentlemen. And now, if you look at the global statistics, about 116 million people across the globe, for more than 200 countries, 116 million got infected by this virus. And the people that are died with this virus is about 2.6 million people. America is the first country, it's not only the largest economy in terms of the economic size, which contributes to the global income probably about 25%. And the same goes with the pandemic infected cases in America, close to 29 million people got infected, ladies and gentlemen, in America alone. So the number of people died is about 522,000 people died in America. The second is none other than India. And India got probably more than 11 million people infected and close to 160,000 people died in India. And the list goes on. Brazil has got probably close to 11 million people. And also the killing range is more than 260,000 people have been killed. So the list goes on. And if you look at the Japanese side of the story, Japan, although we got plus minus about 450,000 people infected in Japan, and only less than 10,000 people died. So we must congratulate the Japanese government and the people to follow the strict lockdown restrictions and the wearing the mask. We are probably using the sanitizers and washing the hands and maintaining the social distancing and so on and so forth. Because for the population of Japan is about 126 million people. For 126 million people, the killing rate of this coronavirus is only less than 10,000, maybe a little more than 8,500 people. So that is the dynamics of the global pandemic and its impact on the major countries in the world. Now, let me take you back to some of the historical pandemics and epidemics that we've been experiencing, the human beings have been experiencing for the past few centuries. Ladies and gentlemen, if you remember that plague disease, which is popularly known as Black Death, a Black Death was started on somewhere around 1346, and 1346 to 1353-54, about 7 years down the line, that plague disease or Black Death killed almost about 35 to 40% of the population that was existing those days, maybe more than 700 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. So this is not a new phenomenon for us. So meaning that we didn't even have 1 billion people, probably about half a billion people that were existing about 700 years ago, that out of half a billion people, 35 to 40% of the people got killed by the plague disease. So thanks to the advancement in the health technologies that we've been experiencing over a period of time, we could able to regulate, we could able to control, we could able to, treat the pandemics from time to time. Then the second major hit that the globe has experienced is by the Spanish flu, exactly 100 years ago. 100 years ago, ladies and gentlemen, starting from 1918 to 1920. And although the disease started somewhere in America, and the H1N1, that is what is known as H1N1 virus, that is popularly known as Spanish flu, because Spanish is the country which is beginning to write so much about, and probably so much attention has been paid by the Spain, and that is why it is known as the Spanish flu. So Spanish flu, in those 3 years time, ladies and gentlemen, it affected or infected more than 500 million people. So what was the population of the world probably in 1920s? We were less than 2 billion, ladies and gentlemen. Our first billion was experienced 1804, and our second billion was experienced only in 1927. So in 1920, the population was probably close to 1.6, 1.7 billion people. Out of that, 500 million people infected by this virus. Now, how many people died with that virus is 10% of the population who are infected. That was 50 million people got killed by this H1N1 virus. So it is by and large like a flu, and the same coronavirus kind of flu. So the killing range or killing the effectiveness of the virus was 10%, whereas the current coronavirus is less than 1%, maybe about 0.82% or so, according to the estimates made by different scientists. So now we've been experiencing not only in 1918 to 20, but also even if you look at World War I, it has killed probably more than 30 million people, and also World War II killed probably by and large a huge number of people, millions of people. So meaning that even Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed by America by little boy and also fat man, killed maybe probably more than 300,000 people. So if you look at that kind of human catastrophe and the experience that we have with this coronavirus pandemic is not that dangerous, but it put us in such an awkward situation. It put us in a tight spot, and it is defining a new normal life for us, which we never ever experienced. So that is something probably the world has been experienced for the past 1 year, and we've been destabilized completely. So we are assembled here to discuss some of the pertinent issues, how this pandemic is impacting the tourism and the hospitality management and hospitality industry. We have seen that the world has changed a lot for the past 7 decades down the line, and including Japan. In 1950, Japanese economy was very small. And of course, Japan was badly hit by the World War II. And thereafter, Japan started working very hard, believing in their own people, believing in their own resources, natural resources. Although Japan has got mountainous and volcanic lands, but despite the limited resources from the Japanese land, but the people, they begin to work hard. So through that work, hardworking nature with the good discipline, they could able to uplift the economy, which was war torn by World War II, to a second largest economy, starting from 1960s. 1950, the journey was started, ladies and gentlemen, and up to 1960, in 10 years period, Japan already experiencing to have an economic growth rate of about 10% per annum. So 1960 to 1970, they experienced about 10% economic growth rate. And 1970 to 80, they experienced about 5% growth. Then by 1978, already Japan became the second largest economy in the whole world after America. America has been the largest economy in the world for about 150 years time, starting from 1871. Until today, America remains the largest economy. Now, Japan enjoyed the second largest economy status through its hard work. Through its hard work and to its perseverance, the way they do things, and the way begin to develop their human capital. And that's how Japan succeeded in most of the countries, those who got probably good amount of natural resource base, but they couldn't able to do what Japan has done. So starting from 1978 until 2010, Japan hold the rank second largest economy in the world. So that is probably, we must congratulate the Japan for having such kind of massive progress in a short period, despite of its resources, natural resource base, and the constraints that it has. Probably it has got so many islands. It's a country which has got large number of islands in the world. So, ladies and gentlemen, without going into much details about Japan, I would like to touch upon some of the salient features. So, meaning that after 1980, though Japanese economy was growing at the rate of 4% on an average, now we are growing, Japan is growing less than 1%. But despite the fact that it remains the third largest economy in the world, which is contributing close to about $6 trillion to the global economy. And in terms of science, technology, innovation, tourism development, and probably manufacturing sector, Japan has made huge strides. And where once upon a time it was an agro-based economy, now the agriculture sector contributes only 3% to the national income. Whereas the industry, Japan has got, once upon a time, it has got the second largest manufacturing sector in the world. Now it is the third largest manufacturing sector, and it is contributing 25% to the the Japanese economy. Now 72% is coming from service industries or service sector. So this is the composition of Japanese economy, ladies and gentlemen. And I just would like to take you to the tourism aspects. The tourism is one of the sensitive and one of the important sectors of the global economy. If you look at the contribution of the tourism sector to the global economy is about 10%. If you take the total GDP of the globe, 10% of the money is coming from the tourism sector. Now, how many people are depending on tourism sector in terms of the employment? Again, it's 10%. Ladies and gentlemen, we got the population today in the world, which is about 7.8 billion people. And Japan, as I indicated to you earlier, a few minutes ago, Japan has got about 126 million people. In fact, the Japanese population is declining, whereas in the globe, population in China, population in India is probably in the rest of the world, in Africa, has been increasing steadily. But in Japan, it has been declining. In 2010, maybe 10 to 11 years ago, the population was reported to be about 128 million. Now we got only 126 million. So it is 10 to, the economic forecasts reveal that probably by end of this 21st century, the population of Japan will come down to 100 millions. So despite the fact that Japan could able to do so much in terms of the economy, and it made itself as uh, the third manufacturing industry in the world. Even today, in this 21st century, 2021, Japan remains the third largest manufacturing sector. Now, when we look at the other side of the coin, of course, in terms of automobile industry, Toyota is known to the major part of the developing countries or including the developed world. So Japan is the third automobile manufacturing industry in the world. So Japan has got so many, probably unique features, which I'm not going to touch upon in the interest of time. Now, I just would like to say that so Japan has done so much in terms of the manufacturing, and also it remained maybe the third largest economy, and it also got top-rated scientists in Japan, which contributes about 12.5% of the total research and development to this world. So these are some of the few remarks I would like to talk about Japan, and I would like to take you to the tourism side. Now, tourism, as I indicated to you, 320 million people, they got the employment from the tourism sector. So we got 7.8 billion people in this world today, and out of that, 320 million people are working in tourism sector. The amount of money that generated from probably tourism sector is more than 3 trillion US dollars, ladies and gentlemen. So meaning that the tourism is contributing so much to the global economy, and every country is beginning to realize the importance of the tourism, and then they begin to invest so much on the tourism sector, ladies and gentlemen. As our fellow keynote speakers in the probably a few hours ago, Professor K. Chine from Hong Kong University of Polytechnic was speaking about the tourism. In fact, started some of the institutions which have been established with a specialization, with a special expertise in tourism and hospitality management somewhere in about 1883. That was started in Switzerland. In America, it was started in 1922, and probably Japan and other countries also started very recently, less than 100 years ago. So within this 100 years, the tourism sector grew up many folds. If you took the statistics according to OECD, Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development Statistics, reveal that the tourism or the foreign tourists visiting other countries in 1950, that is about 70, 71 years ago, ladies and gentlemen, there were only 25 million people. Now today, we got probably more than 1.2 billion people. They are crossing the borders. They are visiting other foreign countries. As Professor Dr. Joseph was indicating earlier in the panel discussion, that maybe he is staying in one country and he is trying to visit his family member. That may not be a tourism per se. It is visiting the family. I'm sitting here in South Africa and my family lives in India. So if I visit, it may not be part of tourism. But nevertheless, ladies and gentlemen, the tourist numbers are been steadily increased from 25 million in 1950 to 1.2 billion people by probably, according to the latest statistics, 2020. Now, what had happened? What kind of impact that coronavirus has created on this tourism industry? As we indicated, as I indicated to you earlier, that we got IMF statistics that reveals that the tourism alone lost more than 100 million people that lost their employment opportunities. So that is in terms of employment. If you look at the MSMEs, micro, small, medium-sized enterprises, which are also linked to tourism industry. They could be hotel industry, they could be restaurant industry, they could be transportation industry, and maybe many other types of industries. So they are significantly experienced irreparable losses, ladies and gentlemen. The income that was lost in tourism industry, close to 1.5 to $2 trillion, disappeared from the global income because of the pandemic. So this is a kind of catastrophe, A catastrophe not only hit the human beings by killing the people, but also the number of people who are depending upon this tourism for their survival, for their employment, for their mainstay, also been suffered by this pandemic for the past 1 year. If you look at the airline industry is, as Professor Kayo was also indicating, that in the Asian continent, Asia is the biggest continent in the world, where it has got 5 top airline industries. Now, Singapore airline industry probably is known, and probably there are many other airline industries. So they are being badly hit. More than $1 trillion losses the airline industry alone incurred irreparable losses. So this is what had happened in terms of the air travel, and we couldn't able to travel for the past 1 year, and eventually, so all the tourism industries, as previous speakers indicated, that country like Japan got an income loss of 100%. And country like Cambodia, which is also depending upon the tourism industry, it got a loss of $5 billion. A small economy like Cambodia losing 5 billion is absolutely a big figure. And one can imagine that it's an irreparable loss for Cambodia. Country like Australia, which has got plus minus about 25 million people, which also got a huge amount of land and more than 5.2 million square kilometers land, and that has got a loss of close to $4.5 billion. So meaning that the bigger economies, one side, country like Australia, though it's a major economy, and it lost huge amount of tourism revenue. Now, if you look at the other side of the coin, where there are island nations. That's why the topic the conference organizers chose island tourism and hospitality management. What are these island countries, ladies and gentlemen? There are so many small islands. Their main income is tourism. 70% or even more than 70% of the income or the GDP that those countries get is absolutely from tourism sector. So what is the fate of those countries now? Look at Maldives, a small island nation which is close to India or Indian Ocean. It is depending upon tourism sector. Now, all those tourism sector probably has been completely closed. The borders are being closed. The people, they lose the confidence to travel, and the consumer index also been declined. And eventually the demand for the tourism, the demand for the airline industries and every sphere of that life has been shattered. So Maldives badly hit. It's an island nation, small island nation. Now look at the Fiji, a South Pacific island nation, Fiji. Of course, we do have so many islands in Pacific, probably ocean, which is the largest ocean in the whole world, which comprises about 162 million square kilometers land, ladies and gentlemen, which has got probably about 40% of the total land of this world covered by the Pacific Ocean. Now, Pacific Ocean, as I was telling about Fiji, Fiji is depending upon tourism and also badly hit. Imagine if a country like Fiji lost the revenue, which is about equal to about 30 years. From 1990, what they were earning and what they are earning today. So they back 3 decades backward, ladies and gentlemen. So we need to understand this dynamics. So Fiji alone, even in the coming 21% of the total economy has been shattered or declined because of this corona pandemic. Now, the same goes with, we do have so many. Kiribati is there, is also a small island nation. Nauru and Tuvalu is there. And Papua New Guinea was there. And Papua New Guinea, where I worked probably many years ago in Lae, a city, a second industrial city, Lae. I was working in Papua New Guinea University of Technology. So imagine the situation of Papua New Guinea, imagine the situation of Solomon Islands, imagine the situation of Samoa, and probably Polynesian islands owned by French, British, and Americans, and so on and so forth. Hawaii, look at the Hawaii scenario. Hawaii also lost more than 100% of its revenue for the past 1 year. So these are the islands which are exclusively depend upon the tourism sector, They lost their revenue, and it will take immense number of years for these countries to come back to the normal life and to regain their status what they were earning before. Let's say. According to IMF statistics, IMF estimates, and also probably United Nations World Tourism Council, probably a tourism organization, they have estimated that it take about 2.5 years to 4 years to come back to the normalcy in terms of tourism sector. So meaning that even in the coming 2021, we are already started 2021, and this is the third month we've been experiencing March 6th today. And maybe even in the 2021, we are not going to have a huge changes in terms of tourism industry, and the revenues that are going to be increased is absolutely imaginary. Now, even 2022, 2023, 2024, probably after 2024, then there could be a possibility where we try to focus on the tourism revenues and tourism industry, and maybe we can try to promote the tourism as before. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you look at Caribbean countries, and there are so many Barbados and Canyon Islands, and there are many other, probably Jamaica and many other Caribbean islands. What is their future actually? According to the recent estimates, it says that about 30,000 hotels they were intended to construct in 2020 and 2021, they have to close them, unfortunately, in between, because there is no demand. Even if they construct, there would be a lot of financial losses for them to manage those buildings and hotels. So eventually, they stopped the construction of those hotels now, ladies and gentlemen. Now, if we take the country like Mauritius, Mauritius is a country in Africa and African continent. It's part of African continent, although the people working and living there, they will be multinationals, especially Indian origin people, but it is an African country. And Mauritius is probably more than 70 to 80% of the total revenue is coming from tourism industry. What is the future of that Mauritius? How are they going to survive about? What are they going to do? Now we take the other country, Seychelles. Seychelles and Mauritius, I visited in 2018, and Seychelles is the smallest country in African continent, which has got about 400 square kilometers land, almost half of the size of Singapore. Now, what is the future of Seychelles? Seychelles is exclusively depending upon, probably 90% of the revenue is coming from the tourist sector, etc. Now, what they were doing just innovatively, just to cover some of those losses, there are the population of Seychelles is only close to about 100,000 people. Maybe in Okinawa city, I don't know the population, probably it could be more than 100,000 people. Or in city, Mahikeng city, in Northwest province of South Africa, where I'm staying, is probably about 300,000 people. So what I'm saying here is that Seychelles has got little population, a little amount of land, depending upon the tourism. It's also island tourism. And then they do not have any revenue. They have a lot of people, they lost their jobs. A lot of people, they lost their businesses. Hotel industry is also completely closed down. And now they are trying to promote the tuna fishing industry as an alternative source of revenue generation, let's say. So if we take, there are so many islands like Puerto Rico, and also is one of the important attractions, tourism attractions in the world. And Puerto Rico also got the same experience. And we do have many other islands that are being affected by this. Even Kenya, Mombasa also used to receive good number of tourists. So African countries, one side, African continent has got a loss of 70% revenue loss for the past 1 year in the tourism sector. And Asian countries, they got a revenue loss of 82% on an average, because Asian tourism and is also one of the prominent tourisms within the world tourism, and they lost more revenue. Asia Pacific countries, they lost more revenue than the rest of the world. Now imagine the situation like France, Spain, they're also depending upon the tourists, and their borders are being closed. Now how are they going to survive? How are they going to, do they going to print the currencies, additional currencies? What are they going to do? So this is a big puzzle for the entire policymakers, economists, tourism experts, and ministers, governments, and probably NGO sector and the scholars across the globe, ladies and gentlemen. So the tourism has been badly affected, particularly the island nations, which are depending upon Madagascar is also an island nation in Africa, which is depending upon the tourism sector. We do have Tanzania, where I was visiting Tanzania and Darussalam, as well as there is a Zanzibar island. A Zanzibar island is also a tourist spot. And most of the people, they visit Zanzibar. It is known as the cloud island of the world. And Zanzibar also badly affected by that. So the list goes on. If you look at so many countries within African continent, and we have Ivory Coast, which also probably a coastal country, their tourism also got affected by that. Now Cape Town, South African Cape Town is one among the top 10 destinations of this world. If you take top 10 destinations, Cape Town remains number 8. South Africa in general used to receive 16 million foreign tourists, ladies and gentlemen. Now the numbers are significantly dropped down because we closed the borders for the past about 8 to 9 months time. So this is significantly impacting a country like South Africa, where they're also depending upon the tourism as their mainstay. About 13% of the total income is coming from the tourism industry in South Africa alone. So there are a good number of people, they got employment also in tourism sector. More than 3 million people lost their employment opportunities in South Africa. So the list goes on. 100 million people, they lost their employment who are exclusively depending upon the tourism sector. Now, country like probably Hawaii, for every 6 people who are working in the tourism industry, 1 lost their job. So this has got, coronavirus has got a very bad impact and negative impact on the lives of the people. It's not only killing one side, the human lives, but also affecting the economies. And the economies will take much time to recover from this kind of path, ladies and gentlemen. So without wasting much time, in the interest of time, I would like to conclude by stating that we do have a hope. A hope is considered to be as the poor man's bread. We mustn't lose the hope, although we lost a huge amount of revenue, and a lot of people, those who are depending upon their businesses, and they lost the revenue, and the number of hotels, they remain empty. There is not even 10% occupancy. Where they used to have a 70 to 80% occupancy rate, and now those occupancy rates also been declined to 10%. So 10%, you cannot even manage those hotels and restaurants. So that is why we must be optimistic, and the hope is considered to be the poor man bread. So we must be hopeful. In the coming 3 to 4 years' time, we will get to the normal life. And although we are experiencing the new normal life, and this is not going to be permanent, and I wish I could visit Okinawa today if this pandemic is not prevailing. And so hopefully in the coming near future, that I may visit Okinawa or I may visit Jakarta. I was there in Jakarta probably in 2017, and Yankee is there. Yankee, I met you in Pondicherry in 2019 December conference. So ladies and gentlemen, let us be optimistic, and probably let us think innovatively. How do we cover the losses, and how we can try to repair those losses, and how do we generate the income by finding out new ways, and probably we encourage the domestic tourism, where you cannot improve the foreign tourism as of now because of the pandemic and the borders are being closed. At least you can try to cover by increasing and promoting the domestic tourism. And the domestic tourists also, they play a vital role in the tourism industry. So with this few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude by saying thanks again to Professor Hashimoto, the Dean of the faculty, and also the conference organizers, and the participants from different corners of the world patiently listening to me. And thank you, Varanda.
Thank you very much, Professor Avi. Very nice presentation. So, any comment or question? Yankee-san.
Can I?
Ah, yes, of course.
Yes. Hello, Professor Ravi. I hope you
Yankee.
are doing fine over there.
Professor Yankee, nice to see you after a long time.
Yes. I'm just wondering, how do you compare what's happening in South Africa and in India and also in our country like Indonesia and Japan, where else? Korea. And do you have you made a comparison on the impact of COVID-19 on tourism, of course?
Well, that is a very good question, Yankee. Thank you for that question. Although I didn't make in-depth analysis or in-depth comparison between the countries that you are trying to ask, South Africa, India, Indonesia, Korea, Japan. Well, just to give you an overall picture, that as I indicated to you, Asia as a continent, which is comprising of Korea, Japan, Indonesia, India, and maybe Pakistan, Thailand, and many other countries. They lost a huge amount of revenues. As I indicated to you, 82% of the revenue loss. So the tourists numbers are declined 82%. As you indicated that maybe the number of tourists, they were X number before in Indonesia, they they were probably about 17 million, if I remember correctly when you are speaking. And then from 17 million, they dropped down to 2 million or so. So the same token is, I mean, the Japan is also badly hit, as I said, 100%, the number of tourists, because they try to control the disease at the cost of the tourists. That is why Japan has got only 8,500 death rates and about 400, less than 450,000 infection cases. The same token goes with your country, Yankee, that Indonesia has got plus minus about less than 20,000 death cases and close to about 400,000 or a little more than 400,000 infected cases. So the tourism, of course, Bali, I forgot to mention about Bali is one of the important tourist destinations in the world, even in not only in Asian continent, but also in the world. So Bali tourist numbers are significantly dropped. Yankee, you can tell me more details about that. And the same thing goes with the other Vietnam. We got, the colleague Kana was talking about Vietnam situation is the same, Laos situation, Cambodia situation, Thailand situation, and all this Malaysian situation as well. So all these countries are badly impacted by the coronavirus. The tourists numbers are significantly dropped down. Even if Malaysian wants to visit Indonesia, they feel like their own country, but still they couldn't able to because of the fear. An unknown fear has been developed among the people. The confidence among the tourists is not there. So confidence is completely taken out. And although we have the vaccination for the past few weeks, we've been reading and listening, and we've been experiencing the vaccinations have been started across the globe by the Oxford and by the, by AstraZeneca, and there are many other. India was also doing, and Indonesia was doing, Japan was doing. But so it's a ray of light for us. It is a kind of hope that, okay, things will be better. But the confidence among the tourists is not been increased yet. It will take some time, as I indicated to you. It takes at least by 2024, 2025. If we could able to get the revenue what we were getting in 1990, or probably 2019, the revenue that we are getting for the tourism sector, if we get maybe by 2025, we are lucky people. So in terms of South African side, Yankee, that in Africa is known for its wildlife sanctuaries. Maybe the national parks that we have, You can, the Europeans and Asians, they come and see the lions and they're moving freely without having any kind of cases. And all the giraffes and all the wild animals like rhinos, you can just watch, you drive and then you watch, they are walking, elephants were walking on the road, within the probably forest areas like Kruger National Park we have in South Africa, Etosha National Park we have in Namibia, where I've been to these two national parks. So these are some of the biggest national parks in the whole world, actually. One of the biggest national parks. So the people that they come to South Africa, as I indicated, to 16, 17 million people, by and large, Indonesia also experienced the 16, 17 million people come to Indonesia, the tourists that come to Indonesia. We also, in South Africa, we experienced that, but those numbers are dropped down suddenly. And Indian scenario also the same, although India got a less number of tourists when we compare with Indonesia and South Africa, they got plus minus about 12.5 million tourists that visit, foreign tourists I'm telling about, they visit India, and they also lost a huge amount of revenue in terms of the tourism. I was following the reports by CMIE, Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, and they revealed that about 150 million people lost their jobs in India alone. So it's not only tourism, but also the construction industry. Obviously, construction industry directly or indirectly supporting the tourism, because there could be hotels, there could be restaurants, there could be a number of things that can be built for in support of the tourism. So they lost the employment opportunities. And that is why 100 million people who are working in the construction industry, they lost the job suddenly because of the pandemic. They have to go back to their villages and they have to stay without any work there. So this is the scenario. I think the same token passed through different countries in the world, whether it is America. Even I was telling that Florida receives 15% of the total revenue from the tourists. Florida doesn't have that now. Hawaii is also one of the states in America, also lost 100% of its revenue. So just to, in a nutshell, to give you a summarized answer, that the coronavirus impacted the tourism sector of every country in the world, whether they are depending on tourism exclusively or not depending on tourism exclusively, but we have the same impact. Thank you. I hope I answered your question, Professor Yankee.
Thank you, Professor Rafi.
Thank you. Any other question or comment? Anybody?
May I ask you a question?
Of course, yes.
My name is Seiji, and I'm from the industry side, and I'm now in academia. My question is, the tourism industry has a high employment absorption capacity and is economically important. In Japan, where there are many SMEs in tourism industry, as you said, it is important to protect employment, I think. On the other hand, it is often pointed out that the tourism industry has low productivity because it is a labor-intensive industry. Which do you personally think is important? Leave it to the market mechanism to eliminate SMEs, or should the government do something to protect SMEs?
Well, Professor Shaji, thank you very much for that question. Well, it is indeed, it is not only the MSMEs in Japan, but in the rest of the world, majority of the economy is by and large a total income between 40 to 60% of the total revenue of every economy coming from the MSMEs. And so if we look at the MSMEs that have been suffered by this pandemic, is absolutely phenomenal. So meaning that according to the United Nations, they were trying to launch a bailout package with about $2 trillion to help all these businesses that have lost the employment opportunities to resurrect them, because they are almost in the verge of death. If they die, in order to promote, in order to bring those dead bodies and make them alive, to resurrect them, it will take another 10 years time. So we do have infant industries, where the lifespan of those infant industries is less than 2 years. So there are many, probably 30 to 40% of those infant industries, particularly at the MSME level, they've been died in their early stage of 1 to 2 years. Now, if we do not take, or the government of Japan or government of any developing and developed countries in the world, if they do not take exclusive measures to support the MSMEs, and the MSMEs contribution to the national economy will be declined, and as a result, the sustainable development of the economy will also be destabilized. So therefore, we need to remember that the governments must create a bailout package where they can try to support these MSMEs until they get back to the normal, business life. So that is what probably my answer would be, Professor. Thank you very much for that question. I hope I answered your question.
Thank you very much. I'm anxious about the post-corona period. During this year or next year, it is okay. The government put a lot of money to protect the companies. However, the government will not protect, cannot protect because of the money. So after the corona, lots of SMEs will be disappeared. That is my I'm anxious about. Thank you very much.
Well, that is true, sir. Just to add a little more point to that, I know country like Japan, being the third largest economy, as I indicated to you, that we have got the huge amount of debt, meaning that if we look at the debt burden according to 2017 statistics and estimates, Japan has got about 238 percentage of debt to its GDP,
Yeah.
which is one of the highest in the world. And
Yeah.
Japan, having such kind of debt, cannot afford to have more support to the MSMEs, so that MSMEs also should try to work hard and try to
Yes.
find some innovative ways. Like I said, we must be resilient. We must be doing something relevant. Whatever when there is a crisis, then only people begin to think more innovative. Actually, if there is no crisis, we feel relaxed and we feel lazy. But if there's a crisis scenario, should try to develop some kind of new opportunities for us. And these MSMEs, without losing the hope, like I was mentioning, that hope is considered as a poor man bread. If the MSMEs in Japan lose their hope, they lose everything. They will be disappeared from the mainstream economy. So they should not do that. They should be optimistic and they should do some small things in a small scale in order to promote the domestic tourism. And eventually they must exist and they must, face the resilience, and they must be, probably waiting for their chance in the coming 3 to 4 years. They'll be back to the normal business life.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's true. Some opinions, some friends told me that protecting SMEs is now is just spoiling them. It's also true. So too much protection is not good, but
Yes.
somehow I do think that to protect them is very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, now it's time to finish. We have to finish. Thank you very much, Professor Ravi. Very nice presentation. Thank you very much. So,
Srinchaku, thank you very much once again. It was indeed a pleasure and honor for me to be part of your conference.
thank you very much too. So see you tomorrow. Tomorrow 10 o'clock start, but the session start at 10 o'clock. Keynote address is starting at 1 o'clock in Japanese,
Okay.
Japan time.
Japanese time.
Japan times.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Thank
So
you.
no dinner tonight? No dinner together?
I regret
We
having.
hope we will have dinner again, Yankee, probably when we meet in Indonesia, in South Africa, or in India, or in Japan, anywhere in the world, or in Turkey. We'll definitely
Yes.
have a dinner.
Anyway, after
Hopefully
COVID,
by this year or by next year, definitely.
Hopefully.
I hope.
Right, right.
Okay, see you. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
See you. はい。どうもお疲れ様でした。ありがとうございました。 本日これで終了いたします。なんかスタッフから一言ある。いいですか。はい。大学院の皆様もありがとうございました。明日また、はい、お会いしましょう。お疲れ様でした。はい。